In Exodus 12, beginning at verse 29, we read, "And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne, unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants, and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not one house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and your children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord as you have said. Also, take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We be all dead men." Our opening text takes us to the darkest night in Egypt, followed by the brightest dawn for Israel. This was the night that he who was considered to be a god among the Egyptians realized that there is only one God, and that is the I Am of Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. The God whose name means the eternally constant God, eternal, who is ever present, unchangeable, he who is completely sufficient in himself. He can will and do that he wills. He can accomplish all that he wills to accomplish because he is capable of doing that. You see, up until this point, this Pharaoh had stood in direct opposition to God. It was almost like he was saying, because I am who I am, I will not recognize who God is. But he needed to realize that there is only one I am. There is only one God who says, this will happen, and it will go this far. I will not allow it to go any further. However, after this night, the realization of who God truly is was so profoundly weighing upon Pharaoh that as Moses and Aaron left his presence, and as our senior pastor just pointed out, this Pharaoh said, Please bless me. Bless me. The importance of this is remarkable because in this moment, Pharaoh is acknowledging that this is the God. This is the one. Think about it. According to the Egyptians' way of life, Pharaoh was a descendant of gods. He was a god. He never had to ask a blessing from a god. He never had to because he himself was one. The fact that he said, Please bless me, he was acknowledging the fact that there was one greater than he is. It took him being broken to realize this. This concession was made even more evident by Pharaoh in the fact that he let them take their children and their herds. He let them take all of that. Egypt could have used those resources. He could have used the people. He certainly could have used the cattle, because even in the land of Goshen, even all of their herd would not have made up for the firstborns that had all died among the Egyptian cattle. Yet Pharaoh had said it in his mind that if it belonged to God, I want no part of it. It belongs to him. It's not mine. I've dealt with God's stuff long enough, and look where it has gotten me. And the Egyptians were even more agreeable than this. For Exodus chapter 12, verses 35 and 36 state that the Israelites borrowed from the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians so that they lent unto them all those things that they have need. Now I know that verse 36 says they lent unto them all those things that they have need of. But when you look again at this passage of Scripture, you realize that that favor extended way beyond what they need. I mean, let's be honest, right? How does someone go through the process of lending and borrowing when they know full well that the borrower has no intention of ever coming back, right? If I were to walk over to your house and say, hey, I want to borrow your car, and I'm going to go to California. I don't plan on coming back. What would you say? I'm calling the police. Get your own car. Call an Uber, right? But no, the Egyptians just, here, do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need this? Yeah, I could use that gold ring. It'll help me on my travels. It's comical, right? But seriously, how does this process take place? How does someone borrow something knowing they're never going to pay it back because they're not intending on ever coming back? And more importantly, how does a person in good conscience lend them these things knowing they're never going to receive it again? This passage reveals that they weren't lending them things that they needed. The Egyptians were so desperate to get Israel out of Egypt that they were basically paying them to leave. Please, you're like those in-laws that we have during the holidays. We can't stand you anymore. Get out of our house. We will do anything for you just to go. This is what was happening and what was taking place. Yes, they may have entered Egypt as a large family of shepherds. But now they were leaving without nearly 100 years of back pay. 100 years of it. Man. Yet even as valuable as all this newly acquired wealth would be, Exodus 13 states that as they made their way out of Egypt, Moses sought to acquire something else just as important. As Exodus 13 verse 19 says, Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones away hence with you. It is about these bones that I would like to talk about. Now, I know what you're thinking. The first thought that pops in your mind is that how in the world are bones nearly as important as all that they had acquired? Surely you can't barter with bones. Yet this is what Moses thought was so important. Now, before I reveal the importance of Joseph's bones and what they represented, first I'd like to take a moment to talk about our bones. These bones, these dry bones. I'd like to talk about them. The skeleton of a human being is a unique structure that gives human beings their characteristic look and their facial geometry. It's what separates us from a tiger out there or an elephant. Now, some people may walk around thinking they feel like an elephant, but you don't look like an elephant. And the reason you don't look like an elephant doesn't have a lot to do with this. It has a lot to do with what's underneath this. Because you can pack on all you want, but you still look human because of your skeleton. You do. It gives us our primary features and characteristics. Not only that, but the bones contain bone marrow, which is like the blood factory of the body. It is what produces the red blood cells that carry all the nutrients through our blood. It is what produces the white blood cells that fight infection, and the platelets that keep us from continuing to bleed. All of this, and my wife just looked at me like, I cannot believe you just said bleed in a sermon. Why would you do that? She's already lightheaded and white-faced. The bone marrow does that. In other words, our bones create life for us. Can't very well have life without the blood, can you, senior pastor? The blood contains life. Oh boy, that's getting deep, right? Also, our bones act as anchors for all the muscles and tendons. They give us the ability to move. Without them, you could take all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's muscles in his Conan the Barbarian days, right? Big old guy. And you could remove his skeleton, and he'd be like this. Hey, what's up? You probably couldn't even do the hey, what's up, right? We don't really realize how much we use these bones. We never see them, but we always use them. Lastly, it is our bones that will be used to identify who we were long after we're gone. Paleontologists have been using fossils to recreate the image of what they feel ancient animals and even dinosaurs looked like. And most of the time, these fossils are just mineralized versions of the bones that they have found. So not only do the bones protect our vital organs, not only do they provide us with life, not only do they allow us to move, but they are the things that we will be remembered and recognized by long after we're no longer here. That's a lot. But what's going to bake your noodle even more is when you realize that symbolically, these bones do the exact same thing. Symbolically, these bones protect what is most vital and important to our lives. These are the core of our self. These are the feelings, the emotions, the beliefs. These are deep down what makes us go where we want to go, do what we want to do. You know what? I can feel it in my what? My mitochondria. That doesn't really sound really right, does it? I can feel it in my pancreas. That sounds a little better, right? I can feel it in my tonsils. None of those work. Where do we feel it? In our bones. I can feel it in my bones. I want to do this. I want to go there. I want to be a part of that. We feel it deep down. Our bones is where it begins. They allow us to move forward in the relationships that we have. Not just physically, but symbolically. Why? Because it's what we want to do. It's what we desire to do. However, when those bones are in situations and caught in conditions that don't allow us to generate life, that don't allow us to be able to move forward to where we would desire to be, but instead keep us held back, there's a real problem. Our bones have to promote what we truly feel. Because they're, again, what will be remembered by, right? Joseph's bones were no exception to this. Although only briefly addressed in Exodus, Genesis 50, 24 and 25 reveals in greater detail why Joseph believed the way that he did and why he made Israel promise him that promise. Yes, Genesis 50 says, "And Joseph said unto his brethren, I die, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he sware unto Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and to Joseph. And he took an oath of the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry my bones from hence." You see, even though Joseph had been instrumental in sustaining and providing for his family with the land of Goshen, they had a secure future because of what Joseph had done. And even though Joseph was second only to the Pharaoh, which meant he would want for nothing, Joseph knew that Egypt was not his home. It didn't matter how comfortable he was. It didn't matter how nice everything was around him. It didn't matter how secure their pension and retirement plan was. He knew, I am not at home in Egypt. And I know God is going to come back. The same God that Abraham believed in his promises, the same God that Isaac believed in his promises, I know that he's going to come back. And so even if I am not alive to see it, I want you to take me with you because I believe it. Joseph believed in God's promises more than any of the other stuff that he had received. All of it played second fiddle to what God had promised he would have. That's why it was so important that Moses grabbed his bones. Because when you believe in the promises of God, that makes you worthy to receive them. That makes you worthy of them. The Bible says that Abraham believed and God counted it to him for righteousness. That is the first element, is believing. Because why? If we truly believe in it, we'll take actions towards it. If we really, really feel it, then we will do it. However, we have to maintain that direction towards God. We have to maintain our beliefs, and we have to understand what those core feelings are. When we do not allow ourselves to live in a way that our bones, that is our core, generates life, then we're in trouble. When our bones or our core beliefs and values aren't protecting that thing that is most vital, which is our salvation, we're in trouble. When the things that we do and the ways that we act and the ways that we think aren't causing us to move closer towards God, we're in trouble. We have to maintain within our bones the reality of what God has called us to be. We have to believe it in here. We can't just go through the motions outside. It has to be genuinely felt inside. When we have relationships containing levels of intimacy that should only be in the bonds of marriage, we're in trouble. When we do not pay tithes to God and yet claim that they belong to Him, guess what? We're in trouble. I return to the Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh did not keep a single thing that belonged to God. He's like, I don't want it. It's not mine, it belongs to Him. This was Pharaoh. When we do less than he did, there's a problem. He had said, if it belongs to God, then why do I need to hold it? It's not mine. When we're caught in situations where we lie more than we tell the truth, I know a lot of this sounds like hypocrisy, and that's what it is. But the point is, all of it reveals who we are in here. We can put on the best show we want. We can put on the nicest outfit in the world. We can look super, super good. But these bones will ultimately reveal who we are. Ultimately, just as Joseph's bones or his core testified of his belief in God, and Moses' bones testified of that as well because he sought to acquire them, we also must show deep down in our core what we believe. And those beliefs have to coincide and agree with our declarations, our talk. We have to walk that talk. Remember that Jesus said every city, every house that is divided will come to naught. The first thing that we have to do is establish who we are in here and figure out if this stuff is aligning with what we have said, and more importantly, if this stuff aligns with what God has said. As Israel was departing from Egypt, many of them took great effort into acquiring those things that their bones desired. We talked about it. Those things that they valued, those things that they then had to support and protect as they moved to Egypt. All of this stuff was brought because of bones. Can't protect it without them, right? Can't move without them. All of this stuff. Yet it was some of these same things that they desired when later on Moses was standing on top of Mount Sinai and receiving more from God. Moses looks over at God and says, I hear something. And God says, yeah, I hear it too. It's those people. What is it? They have taken those things most precious to them and turned them into a god for them. All of this took place because deep down, this is what they desired and wanted. They said, these be thy gods, O Israel. These be thy gods that lifted thee out of the land of Egypt. The Bible says that Aaron said unto them, make up gods which shall go for us this day. For as for this Moses person, we don't know where he is. Sure you do. He's up on top of the mountain. He desired to receive from God. So he wanted to be close to those who desired the same thing. He said, you know what? Y'all can take whatever y'all want to take out of Egypt. You know the one thing I'm going to take out of Egypt? The guy who believed we'd never be here permanently. What I want to take is the faith of someone who was here before me. 65 years, by the way. Joseph was dead before Moses was born. Long time. But he said, you know what? I want what that guy had. We need that in the church today. We need to be looking to our elders and saying, hey, you know what? I want the faith that he had. I want the belief that she had. I want to be able to look up to God and know, just as they knew before me, that God is there, God is on the throne, and God is going to do what he has said he's going to do. Because again, he is the I am. He is God. Yet we walk around today with so many opinions and so many beliefs on so many small matters, yet we have lacked in a defining, definitive position on the one that matters most. What is it? What is it that matters most? God does. But then, interesting point I heard from someone the other day. He said, if Christians, not the world, if Christians truly viewed God as the most important thing, and this is going to be an oh me moment, it was for me. If we really viewed God as the most important thing, it would change the way we walk every day. Last week, the worship director, my brother, he talked about a conversation that he had had with a person who was a drummer. And he went through all of the thoughts in his head as to why I shouldn't say, hey, why don't you come down and play the drums? All of the excuses. Then he felt weird about it. He felt convicted about it. This is us every day. It's not just about a drummer. It's not just about a singer. It's not just about a person. It's about the fact that if God were the truly most important thing in our life, it would govern every action that we do. Every one of them. It would. C.S. Lewis said that Christianity is either the thing of most importance, or it is of no importance at all. The one thing it cannot be is mediocrely important. It can't just be somewhat important to you. If it is the most important thing within our core and our being, it will govern our life and the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we act around people. We will consider it, hey, this might be the only time that they get to see Christ. Oh, what are you talking about? Jesus is all over the internet. Yeah, he is. There's a lot of other stuff on the internet too. But do you think the internet gives us the ability to be off the hook? Do you think the internet gives us the ability to say, hey, I don't have to witness today because all they have to do is open up their phone. Everyone has their phone out anyway. Hate to break it to you. The church was alive and well in Jesus' day too. But a lot of the people weren't attenders. A lot of the people weren't in the know when it came to Jesus. We may live in the age of information where it is so readily available. But that doesn't make us, the church, unresponsible. That doesn't take any more of the responsibility off of us to do what we've been called to do. All of this is directly tied to here. Give me a gorilla. Okay, I'll try that again. Give me a gorilla. I say that because in your core, you're made of something that's far more stouter than you give yourself credit for. Deep down, you may feel, I'm old, I'm slow, I'm weak, I'm not the smartest person, I'm not the fastest person. You have something rock solid in you that is capable of doing great things for God. If the core of you is behind what you do for God, you will move mountains for God. You won't need someone else to do this or to be there to do that. You will be able to do it. Because your bones are just as good as any other bones. They are. Now, obviously, one can't talk about bones without talking about the soldier, right? The soldier who fell on the bones of the prophet and then came back alive. These bones contain life, thanks to God. These bones contain what we need to change what's going on out there. We have to align them with what God has said. And more importantly, we have to start living our day in, day out life as if it is the important thing. Now, I know it's, as I said before I even began speaking, there's a really solemn, sobering spirit in the house. It's not a message that ends up getting people shouting off the walls and singing praises. It's a message of wake up to the times that we are in. We just had Danny say, this country is in a really bad way. Look around us. Pressure is rising. People are constantly in turmoil. And aggression is through the roof. If we can't stand for the church, it will be lost in the confusion. Bones support our daily efforts. What are you efforting? What are you trying to do? They protect what we value most. What is it you treasure? They move us, again, to a more desirable location. Where is it you want to go? What is it you want to do? And lastly, these bones, again, will be the thing that identifies us. When talking about bones, Christ condemned the scribes and the Pharisees because they walked around as whited sepulchres, which indeed appeared beautiful on the outside, but inside were nothing but dead, dry bones. You can doll it up all you want, but ultimately it's what's in here that's going to reveal who you are, not out here. And one day, our bones will be revealed for all to see. And there'll either be a memorial that testifies to how we believed in God, or there'll be an embarrassing skeleton in an even more embarrassing closet.